and welcome back to Elevenses. It's Thursday's edition today, and as you can see, Jonathan's looking a little bit different today. It's not Jonathan, it's Josiah instead. Jonathan has had to take Anya off for a hospital appointment. So you've just got me, and Josiah volunteered to be my wonderful glamorous assistant today. Glamorous. So you've got me as well. Thank you for joining us, and thank you if you're joining us later as well. Do leave a comment in the chat if you want to let us know you're here now or you've been here later on. We will get back to you. We do love to hear who's been watching. It's really good. On Monday, we looked at the first part of Psalm 66 and saw how it linked to the book of Exodus, the story of the Israelites escaping from Egypt. They'd been trapped under the oppression of Pharaoh with no obvious means of escape, and then God brought them out of the land of Egypt by miraculously parting the Red Sea. You know the story well. And today we're looking at the next section of that psalm. We're looking at verses 8 to 15, and Josiah has said he will read it for us. So looking forward to hearing it from him. Want to read it? Want to go a bit closer to you so you can see it better?
Let the whole world bless our God and loudly sing his praises. Our lives are in his hands, and he keeps our feet from stumbling. You have tested us, O God. You have purified us like silver. You captured us in your net and laid the burden of slavery on our backs. Then you put a leader over us. Well, we went through fire and flood, but you brought us to a place of great abundance. Now I come to your temple with burnt offerings to fulfill your vows I made to you. Yes, the sacred vows that I made when I was in deep trouble. That is why I'm sacrificing burnt offerings to you, the best of my rams as a pleasing aroma, and a sacrifice of bulls and male goats.
Thank you, Josiah. So here the psalmist is talking about the after the trials, after the terrible things have happened, and it talks about testing us like silver. Now, I didn't know how silver was made until last night when I had a little look into it. And in biblical times, silver was valued for its rarity. In fact, in Israel, it was very rare to find silver as a precious metal. Copper and iron were much more common, but silver was rare, a bit like gold as well. And it was valued not only for its rarity, but because it was it resisted corrosion, and it had a beautiful, brilliant white luster, and it was also very malleable, which meant it was very good for artistic decoration. And the silver was extracted from lead by heating it in a fire, and you basically extracted it from the ashes. Now the silver would rise to the surface from the dross, and it was extracted using either a blast of air or a scraper. It sounds incredibly dangerous and something I wouldn't like to do at all. But then after that, the silver had to be refined twice, and often they would have to add lead or other things back into it in order to get it as it should be. So they would introduce the lead, but if you didn't introduce enough lead, you would end up just with a scummy mess and no silver at all. And when the refining process was done correctly, you had obviously a beautiful metal without impurities that shone brilliantly. And the Bible makes references to silver throughout it. It talks about the word of God being like silver that's been refined, really pure and brilliant. But there are a couple of references about people being like silver that's been refined. In Zechariah 13:9, it says, I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name and I will answer them. I will say, they are my people, and they will say, the Lord is our God. And in Malachi, it talks about, he was an Old Testament prophet, talks about what the future Messiah might be like. And he says he'll be like a white hot fire from the smelter's furnace. He'll be like the strongest lye soap at the laundry. He'll take his place as a refiner of silver, as a cleanser of dirty clothes. He'll scrub the Levite priests clean, refine them like gold and silver, until they're fit for God, fit to present offerings of righteousness. Then, and only then, will Judah and Jerusalem be fit and pleasing to God, as they used to be in the years long ago. I know that the last year has been a real challenge for so many of us. The struggles of lockdown, not being able to get what you needed from the supermarkets during those first few months, people hoarding toilet paper whilst other people really struggled to feed their families from ever decreasing supplies from the food banks. The dashed hopes as we began to come out of one lockdown and then had to go into yet another. The grieving families who couldn't say a proper goodbye to their loved ones, life events that couldn't properly be celebrated, lack of human touch, and crippling loneliness. There was a really interesting programme we saw on the news, I think it was the news, it was on very late at night, and it showed how different lives had been affected by COVID right across the world. So as the events were unfolding, these people were giving their stories, and in some countries, showing in Nairobi in Kenya, the actual danger wasn't just from COVID, but also from the brutality of the police as they enforced lockdowns over there. People died. People were losing their lives because for whatever reason they hadn't been able to get inside on time, and that wasn't just from the disease. So people have had a really, really tough time. The psalmist here has talked about that tough time that the Israelites had being stuck in Egypt. They were oppressed, they were brutalized. It was a horrific time. And he's talking about the fact that now he's been brought through that time, and that there will be other times when it's difficult as well. And what he actually says is, God's brought me in, he brought me into that troubled place, but he's going to bring me through it. And he's also going to bring me out of it. He's going to bring me into an abundant place, a place of running water and fruitfulness. God always enriches us when we are going through difficulty. He proves us and he tries us to make us more like Jesus. It's a bit like baking bread. I don't know whether anybody's done that during lockdown. We do a lot of bread baking, don't we? In fact, actually, it's Daddy that does that, isn't it? He does that. But if you're making bread that's not in a bread maker and you're doing it by hand, you have to really pummel that dough. It's quite an effort, isn't it? And the dough really does get a good thumping. And it's kneaded and kneaded. And then it also has to sit around for a really long time in between those times where it's being kneaded. It's called proving. And if it doesn't do that, then it doesn't turn out into a very nice loaf. It has to have those waiting times in order for it to be the loaf that you want it to be. And the Israelites had a lot of waiting around in the desert as well after their trials in Egypt. And they probably thought they were never ever going to get to the promised land because it took so long, and they had lots of doubts as well. And then it took a whole lot longer. But God did follow through on that promise. Now, God doesn't want us to suffer. I do not believe in a God that wants us to feel pain and hurt. But he does use the difficult circumstances that we go through as opportunities for us to turn to him. Sometimes when we're struggling, it can feel like we're treading water and we can't see how God is working. And it's only when we look back that we can see how he has worked through those difficulties. And the psalmist is saying here that it's really important that when we do look back, that we don't forget who has brought us through it, that we thank God for taking care of us. We often make promises when we are struggling, don't we? Oh God, if you can just get me through this, I'll do such and such a thing. And the psalmist says, God hasn't forgot his promises to you. He never does. So you don't forget your promises to him. Shout and praise and celebrate what he has done. We don't make animal sacrifices now, but we can offer him our thanks and our praise. These are gifts that we can give back to God and share with others what he taught us. The Message sums the passage up quite well. It says, "Bless our God, O peoples, give him a thunderous welcome. Didn't he set us on the road to life? Didn't he keep us out of the ditch? He trained us first, passed us like silver through refining fires, brought us into difficult country, pushed us to our very limits, road tested us inside and out, took us to hell and back." Some of us can really relate to that, can't we? "Finally, he brought us to this well-watered place. I'm doing what I said I'd do, what I solemnly swore I'd do that day when I was in so much trouble." Testimonials help other people. They build our faith and they build other people's faith and serve as a witness to them, to God's power to bring you out of trouble and to the other side. I know for us, we have an incredibly powerful testimony of how God has worked in our lives. We have 7 children, but they are all incredibly miraculous. I was told at the age of 19 I would never have children at all. There was no way that would ever happen. And yet God has worked. And it's also been through heartache at times as well. We have lost babies along the way. It has been a struggle. It has been painful, but God has brought us through, and our testimony, well, there's one of them here, right here now, and it's incredibly amazing. There's a couple of quotes I've got here, and one is actually from Maya Angelou, and she says this: stand up straight and realise who you are, that you tower over your circumstances because you are a child of God. He's got it sorted out already. So even though circumstances may feel like they're crushing us, actually, he's already got it in his hands. And then we need to say thank you to him afterwards. I'm going to pray a prayer now. I'm going to use some words from a song that I was actually listening to while I was preparing this, and I really felt that God wanted me to share these words with you, so I'm going to do that now. Deep within my heart, Lord, I know you've won. I know you've overcome, even in the dark when I'm undone. I live by faith and not by sight. Sometimes miracles take time. And while I wait, I will worship. I'll worship your name. While I wait, I will trust you. I'll trust you all the same. When I fall apart, you are my strength. Help me not to forget. Seeing every scar, you make me whole. You're my healer. You're faithful every day. Your promises remain. Though I don't understand it, I will worship with my pain. You are God, you are worthy. You are with me all the way. So while I worship, though I don't have all the answers, still I trust you all the same. Father, we thank you that giving thanks to you has nothing to do with our circumstances, but it has everything to do with who you are and what you have done for us and what you continue to do for us. I pray that we would not forget when we look back and see how you've worked in our lives to give you the credit and you the praise. And I just pray now for those people that are struggling, that are having a really difficult time, Lord, that you would be there right in their hearts, reminding them that you are God and you do have their lives in your hands. Help them to turn to you and remember that you are there no matter how difficult the circumstances, and you will carry them through. In your name.